If your monthly salary in the United States barely covers a few cups of coffee and part of your bills, then in Moldova, yes, Moldova, that same amount can give you a surprisingly comfortable life. With just $100, you could eat out for an entire week, travel across the city, and still feel like you're spending a little too freely. Moldova is a small country tucked between Romania and Ukraine, squeezed between two opposing cultural currents, yet carrying its own unmistakable identity. This caught-in-the-middle position creates an atmosphere unlike anywhere else, a blend of lingering Soviet nostalgia and a quiet longing for modern Europe. The scenery unfolds in that classic old Eastern European-style concrete blocks, standing still as if time has stopped wide boulevards where the wind is louder than the traffic. The nation has just over 5 million people, but each year thousands more young Moldovans leave in search of opportunities abroad, leaving behind long avenues and a rhythm of life that grows slower with time. A small, modest, often overlooked country, yet it carries a strange magnetism that makes many Western visitors wonder, how does a place as simple as Moldova make life feel so much lighter? Geography and the atmosphere of the country. There's a quiet loneliness woven into the very geography of Moldova, a feeling you notice almost immediately, as if the land itself remembers more people than it currently holds. Moldova sits in a strangely delicate position on the map, pressed between Romania to the west and Ukraine to the east. Two larger nations with their own histories, conflicts, and cultural forces that have shaped everything around them. This tiny country carries the weight of those influences, absorbing pieces from both sides, while still trying to hold on to its own identity. The landscape reflects that push and pull. In the cities, you'll find muted gray buildings, relics of a Soviet past, that still loom over the streets like silent witnesses. But just beyond those concrete blocks, the countryside opens into endless green, soft, rolling hills, quiet villages and farmland that looks almost untouched by time. Moldova feels divided, not just politically or culturally, but visually, half urban memory, half rural calm. Walk through the streets, and the contrast becomes even clearer. The boulevards are surprisingly wide, yet often empty, as if they were built for a population that never arrived. Large parks break up the city, with pockets of stillness where elderly men play chess and young mothers push strollers under tall trees. Life moves slowly here, not out of leisure, but out of habit shaped by decades of modest living and gentle routines. With a small population and a constant wave of young people emigrating, Moldova carries an undeniable sense of emptiness. Not in a negative way, but in a nostalgic one. It feels like a place that once held more voices, more dreams, more movement, and now stands quietly waiting for something to return. This is the atmosphere that defines Moldova, a country caught between two worlds shaped by history, softened by time, and held together by the quiet resilience of its people. 2. History and the modern social mindset. To understand Moldova today, you have to understand the weight of the past it still carries. For decades, this small nation existed under the shadow of a former Soviet system, a structure that shaped how people worked, how they thought, and even how they related to one another. And even though those days are long gone, traces of that era continue to echo through everyday life. Modern Moldova is caught between two psychological worlds. One part of the country is looking outward toward a modern Europe filled with opportunity, technology, and the promise of something new. The other part still holds tightly to the habits, values, and caution formed during decades of living under a centralized, controlled system. It's not a conflict you see on the streets. It's one you feel quietly in conversations, in attitudes, in the way people adapt to change. Politically, this divide is even more pronounced. Moldova's society often leans in two opposite directions, pro-European and pro-Russian. Each side has its own memories, its own fears, and its own hopes for the future. And this polarization doesn't just affect elections, it shapes daily conversations, job opportunities, media, and even how families view one another. It is a country trying to move forward while being pulled back at the same time. You can see this tug-of-war reflected in the infrastructure as well. Many roads, buildings, and public systems still feel like they belong to another era, worn practical and built for a different time. Modern development is happening, but it's slow, deliberate, and sometimes uneven. And strangely, that slow pace becomes part of the country's personality. Life here doesn't rush. It doesn't demand. It simply moves at its own rhythm. This combination, a complex history, a divided present, and a gentle pace creates a society that is cautious but resilient, modest but sincere. People here have learned to live simply, to adapt quietly, and to find peace in what they have. And for visitors coming from fast-paced Western countries, that atmosphere can feel like stepping into a calmer, older world, where life isn't something you chase, but something you sit with. 3. Climate and the seasonal rhythm of life. Moldova is a country where each season reveals a completely different version of itself. In the summer, the nation feels as if it finally wakes from a long sleep. The sky turns crystal clear, stretching endlessly to the horizon, and the sunlight is warm and gentle, not harsh like in southern Europe. People spend more time outdoors, cafes fill up parks, overflow with children's laughter, and even the quietest streets seem more alive. Summer here isn't loud or extravagant, but warm in a way that makes you want to stay outside just a little longer. Then winter arrives, and Moldova transforms into an entirely different world. The cold cuts sharply against your skin, gray buildings sit under a thin veil of frost, and the sky barely changes color for weeks. The city shifts into a slower mode, as if every movement grows heavier. People walk less, speak softer, and spend most of their time indoors, where warmth becomes a small daily luxury. Between these two extremes, each season gives Moldova its own distinct soul. Summer brings life and closeness. Winter pulls you into the country's quiet, introspective side. And it's exactly this contrast that makes Moldova a place you don't just see, you feel it with your whole body. 4. Women and traditional family values. When people talk about Moldovan women, they often mention a kind of beauty that isn't loud or showy, a quiet, refined elegance shaped by nature and the unique blend of cultures surrounding this region. Their features carry hints of Romania, a touch of Ukraine, and the softness of the Balkans. But what truly stands out is not their looks, but their presence, calm, mature, and somehow deeper than their age suggests. From a young age, girls in Moldova are taught to take care of themselves, not to chase trends, but as a form of self-respect. They dress neatly, maintain good habits, care for their skin and hair, small routines that create a composed and feminine aura anyone can notice. There's a sense that they grow up a little faster, shaped by responsibility and resilience. Traditional family life is still the foundation of society here. Many women grow up in households that value warmth, order, and the woman's role in keeping the home balanced. They learn to cook early, to manage the household, to respect elders, and to hold on to the values passed through generations. Not because they're forced to, but because these things are seen as expressions of love. One quiet but striking reality is that women significantly outnumber men in Moldova. This means many women reach their early 30s still unmarried, not from a lack of desire, but because they are selective, independent, and unwilling to settle for the sake of timing. They want the right person, not just someone who happens to be there. At the same time, Moldova's massive wave of emigration has opened their worldview. Many have mothers, sisters, aunts, or cousins living in Italy, Germany, France, or Spain. Through them, they hear stories of new lifestyles, new freedoms, new opportunities. This exposure makes Moldovan women more open to foreigners, more comfortable communicating across cultures, and more curious about people from different backgrounds. In the cultural portrait of Moldova, women are not just beautiful, they are the soul of the family, symbols of resilience, and the bridge between past and present, between tradition and a rapidly changing world. 5. Nightlife and social etiquette. When night falls, Moldova doesn't burst into noise or wild energy like the party capitals of Europe. Instead, its nightlife carries a warm, understated charm. Small bars glowing with soft yellow light, cozy lounges playing gentle music, low conversations drifting between tables, and the faint scent of wine in the air, all of it creates an atmosphere that is both intimate and quietly mysterious. This isn't a place for loud parties. It's a place to sit down, drink slowly, and share deeper conversations. If you plan to explore Moldova's nightlife, there are a few things worth remembering. First, always carry cash, not because the country is outdated, but because POS machines tend to stop working at the most inconvenient moments. Using a taxi app is the safest and cheapest option, and it's best to avoid random street taxis unless absolutely necessary. There's also a golden rule: avoid political discussions. Even a casual comment can shift the mood instantly, turning a warm evening into a tense one. And just like anywhere else in the world, never accept drinks from strangers. Most locals are kind and respectful, but nightlife always carries risks you don't want to discover firsthand. As for clothing, being well-dressed always makes a good impression. A dark shirt, a neat jacket, or a simple clean outfit is enough to blend in. Moldova doesn't demand luxury, just respect for the space. Moldovans tend to be shy at first. They observe more than they speak. But if you approach them politely, gently, and with genuine friendliness, you'll be surprised at how quickly they open up. Once they feel comfortable, they won't treat you like a tourist. They'll treat you like someone worth raising a glass with. 6. Cost of living. One of the reasons Moldova quietly attracts foreigners is its almost unbelievable affordability. Compared to the United States, you can live here for 70 to 80% less while still enjoying a comfortable, stress-free lifestyle. A meal at a local restaurant costs only $7 or $10, generous in portion and rich in Eastern European flavor. A morning coffee just $1 to $2. Getting around the city barely dents your budget. A taxi ride is typically $3, $5. While buses and trolleybuses are so cheap, you'll want to use them every day. What surprises many visitors is how strong and inexpensive the internet is. For remote workers or anyone who needs constant connectivity, Moldova can feel like a hidden gem. But housing is where the real shock comes. In the city center, you can rent a clean, modern apartment for $350, $550 per month. A price that wouldn't even get you a small room in many American cities. If you prefer quieter residential areas, expect $250, $400. And in the suburbs, surrounded by greenery and fresh air, you can find spacious homes for just $150, $250. This combination of simplicity and comfort is exactly why so many foreigners fall in love with Moldova. Here, you don't chase luxury, you simply live. You slow down, breathe a little easier, and realize that sometimes having enough is the greatest luxury of all. 7. Attitude of locals toward Americans, foreigners. Moldovans are friendly, but in a quiet and reserved way. They won't open up immediately, yet they always show respect and politeness. At first, they may watch you more than they speak, but once trust is built, they become warm and surprisingly welcoming. They generally have a positive impression of Americans and Europeans. With so many relatives working abroad in Italy, Germany, or the US, They are naturally curious about the outside world and curious about you. Moldovan women tend to engage more easily in conversation with foreigners, often wanting to know how you live and what you think of their country. Men, on the other hand, are calm, gentle, and a bit reserved, but always kind and willing to help when asked. In Moldova, friendships don't form instantly. But if you're respectful and sincere, people will treat you as someone familiar, and that's when the country truly opens its heart to you. 8. Places you should visit. Your journey through Moldova often begins in Chișinău, a capital with two contrasting faces, one trying to modernize, the other still marked by Soviet-era concrete blocks. Walking along its wide boulevards, you'll see green parks blending with old architecture, creating a calm, slightly nostalgic atmosphere. Not far from the capital lies Orheiul Vechi, the country's most iconic ancient valley. Here, the Rout River winds gently beneath towering limestone cliffs, and a centuries-old monastery sits carved into the rock. The silence is so profound, you can hear the wind brushing against the stone, a beauty both raw and spiritual. To the north stands Soroca Fortress, a remarkably preserved medieval citadel. Its thick circular walls and echoing stone floors make you feel as if you've stepped straight into a chapter of history. For something truly unique, explore Moldova's underground wine cellars such as Cricova or Milești Mici. These tunnel networks stretch for hundreds of kilometers. The cool air, dim lighting, and scent of aged wine create an atmosphere that feels mysterious, almost cinematic, more like a museum of time than a winery. Finally, seek out Țipova Monastery, perched dramatically on a cliff overlooking the Dniester River. When the wind passes through the cracks in the rock, it produces soft, haunting tones that give the entire place an otherworldly calm. Wherever you go, each site carries a piece of Moldova's soul, quiet, old, modest, yet full of a gentle, enduring beauty. 9. Festivals, culture, traditions. When you think of Moldova, the first thing that stands out is the National Wine Festival, the country's biggest celebration. Every October, the capital transforms into a small wine city where hundreds of winemakers pour generous tastings for visitors. The scent of oak barrels, the pop of opening bottles, and warm laughter in the autumn air create a mood that is lively yet unmistakably Moldovan. As spring arrives, the country brightens again, with Martisor, a beloved tradition, where people exchange red and white strings symbolizing luck and renewal. You'll see them pinned to jackets tied in hair, or hung near doorways, small charms carrying big meaning. Moldovan folk music is another cultural soul. The haunting tones of the naipan flute, the soft whistle of traditional flutes, and the energy of violins fill festivals and village gatherings. These instruments don't just make sound, they tell stories. Traditional embroidered clothing remains a cherished heritage. Each region has its own patterns and colors, each thread carrying the memory of ancestors. On festive days, seeing locals dressed in hand-stitched blouses feels like watching history walk beside you. And no Moldovan celebration is complete without the hora, the symbolic circle dance. People join hands, step in rhythm, and move as one. Whether at wine festivals, weddings, or village feasts, the hora captures the warmth, unity, and spirit of this small nation in a way words never fully can. 10. Cuisine and specialties. Moldovan cuisine carries the soul of Eastern European village life, simple, comforting, and deeply traditional. One of the most beloved staples is the variety of slow-cooked stews, rich with tender meat and vegetables. Alongside them are classic cornmeal dishes like mamaliga, soft and golden, served with cheese and sour cream. And no visit is complete without trying stuffed pastries like placinta, crispy on the outside, warm and savory on the inside. For those who enjoy bold flavors, Moldova offers hearty grilled dishes, marinated meats cooked over open charcoal, filling the weekend markets with an irresistible smoky aroma. Street food here is simple but surprisingly delicious. With just a few dollars, you can enjoy a hot pastry, a skewer of grilled meat, or a rustic bowl of soup. Humble dishes that taste far better than their price suggests. Food culture in Moldova is defined by slow living and family gatherings. Dinner is a moment to come together, talk, and unwind. Moldovans believe that the best meals are the ones shared with the people you care about. Cuisine also plays a key role in traditional ceremonies, the harvest feast, sweet spring treats during Martisor, and special dishes served at weddings where wine flows freely, and the hora dance circles through the night. Every meal here is more than food, it's a story, a memory, a piece of heritage. 11 Social rules and things you should know. Moldova is a country that values quiet spaces, so speaking softly in public is an unspoken rule. In cafes, parks, and on public transport, people keep their voices low and respect the atmosphere around them. At local markets, you can negotiate gently, but always with politeness. Moldovans take pride in their products and dislike aggressive bargaining. Respect for religion, women, and elders is essential. When entering churches or monasteries, dress modestly and remain quiet. And when visiting someone's home, remember to take off your shoes, a simple but meaningful sign of respect. In conversation, Moldovans prefer subtlety. They rarely interrupt. Instead, they wait for you to finish speaking before responding. This creates a calm, thoughtful rhythm in everyday communication. Traffic can be slow and crowded during peak hours, so patience is key. It's also wise to buy travel insurance, as public health care may not always meet expectations. When moving around, keep your ID or a digital copy with you in case it's needed. And note that public restrooms may lack basic supplies like toilet paper or soap-carrying tissues is a smart habit. These small cultural details will help you blend in and experience Moldova in a way that feels natural, respectful, and deeply rewarding. And when you look back on this journey through its quiet streets, ancient valleys, humble meals, and gentle people, you begin to realize something unmistakable. Even though Moldova is one of the poorest countries in Europe, it offers what many richer nations have forgotten. A sense of peace soft as an early morning breeze. A cost of living that lets you breathe without fear of the next bill. Kind people reserved on the outside but sincere at heart. An old-world beauty, imperfect yet deeply authentic. And a way of living that modern America simply no longer provides for those who wish to slow down. Moldova is not a paradise, but it is a reminder that life doesn't need to be rushed, expensive, or exhausting to be meaningful. So the question is, could a small, quiet country like this be the place where you finally rediscover ease in your life? If this video gave you something to think about, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Would Moldova be a place you'd want to experience at least once in your life?